Mobile experiences for everyone to look forward to. The third episode of our podcast series features our client, co-founder and co-CEO of Live Tech Games, Nathan Moore. Live Tech Games as a company are on a mission to build groundbreaking technologies to captivate players. For Nathan and his team, they see the market shifting away from on-demand gaming, and they are the first to react in the gaming space. Via their first of its kind tech platform, they connect huge audiences for short, simple, and yet thrilling bursts of fun that capture the attention of players simultaneously at a set time. Their brands include Poggle, LTG Labs, and LTG TV. And clients include ITV Studios for their show This Morning, an award-winning company with the Startup Awards, such as Young Entrepreneurs Winner, Overall Regional Winners, and Digital Startup Winners. The future of Live Tech Games is an evolving company driven by massive ambitions and strategic backers, with a pledge to create sensational digital experiences for everyone. The team at Live Tech Games looks to continue to explore new opportunities, partnerships, and to progress their mission further. We are looking forward to showcasing this next episode of our podcast series. Hi, Nathan. Thank you for joining me on the third episode of our podcast series. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name's Oliver Oguz, and I'm the managing director and a chartered trademark attorney at Trademark Wizards. Our firm deals with and advises on the protection of hundreds of trademarks every year and any disputes if and when they arise. This is the third in a series of interview episodes that I'll be conducting with clients of ours as we discuss their brands and businesses, their approach to trademarking, and their experience using Trademark Wizards, as well as providing some useful insights for those in our network and listeners just to take away and think about. So the third guest of our series is none other than Nathan Moore, who is the co-founder and CEO of Live Tech Games. Hello, Nathan.
Good morning, Oliver. How are you?
I'm amazing, Nathan. Thank you. And I trust and hope that you are the same. Nathan,
Absolutely.
I'd like to talk boastfully about your achievements, because I've known you long enough to know that you're far too humble to do it yourself, but I just wouldn't know where to start. I mean, first of all, I think we should give a mention to your co-founder, Samuel, and your team also needs a mention. I mean, Forbes Under 30 Startup of the Year, Young Entrepreneur of the Year, Digital Startup of the Year, and you've won the same awards 2 years in a row. I mean, my goodness. I mean, Nathan, tell us, what is Live Tech Games?
Well, thank you very much. I mean, that's definitely the best intro I've ever received, Oliver. So I'll be remembering this moment. But I think it doubles down to, you're right. It's the team. It's my co-founder Samuel. It's definitely been a big back from when it was just Samuel and I in the very early days. So yeah, big team effort to get to where we are today. But Live Tech Games, we're pioneering a whole new genre of mobile gaming. So we are a gaming business focused around technology, but ultimately we're pioneering what we call appointment to play games. So easier, they're live at set times. So rather than being able to play the game any time of day, you pick up your phone, you do it when you're bored. Our games are only at the times that we set them. So for example, there's actually a game tonight at 7 p.m. This is on a Monday. And they're also on Wednesdays, Fridays. But if you don't join the game at 7 p.m., you don't get to play. So they're at those moments in time, creating that sort of community, exclusivity, but they're also really short bursts of entertainment. So they're quick knockout games, really simple games that anybody can join in. And we whittle down to one winner. It takes about 6 to 7 minutes to get to a winner if you have tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people playing the game. And then we often give those winners a real prize. So at Live Tech Games, we're just all about building this whole new style of mobile gaming, really exciting short bursts of entertainment, and also following the market trends of the fact that I think people are quite bored of the whole on-demand 24/7 access to everything. And we're following suit in the gaming side of that. And it's definitely been a big technical challenge to build this style out too.
I mean, that's great, and it's amazing that you noticed that the market was shifting away from the on-demand stuff, and I guess you were pretty much, if not the first, one of the first to react in the gaming space in that respect. And in terms of the games, I mean, you do really captivate your audiences with these accessible, light-hearted competitions and tournaments, as well as these free prizes. So it's unbelievable, and the fact that you've also launched your competitions in the US is also incredible, Nathan. I mean, what we all want to know is what was the actual inspiration behind the idea to start Live Tech Games?
Yeah, well, it actually goes quite a long way back. So my co-founder Samuel and I used to work at Microsoft, and we always knew we wanted to start a business. And we actually had an idea once in a pub after work. We fleshed it out. We really thought we'd got a great idea for a company, and we started to try and raise investment for that business. And the problem that we found when talking to investors was it was a product, it was a fantastic idea. I'll still stand by that. But the product itself, you effectively would have to pay today, and it would take you years to feel the value and the benefit from it. And a lot of investors just couldn't, they didn't want, they know that's a lot of money to have to get involved in terms of marketing and product to actually only see the benefit a long way down the line. So we put that on hold and said, if we're ever going to go to raise money ever again, we're going to do it where there's a product that you just get immediately, like right in the moment. And with that in mind, it was genuinely only a couple of weeks that went by before we were sat in the office, and a couple of other colleagues were actually booking rooms, meeting rooms, to go and play a game that had come out in the US that was a live game. And we played this game, and we watched how people that hated games, the same sort of people that would normally say, oh, games on my phone, I don't have any games on my phone. These same people were now playing this game because it was live. And we looked at that, we played it for a couple of weeks and said, we can do this better. Like there's so many more ways to make this more exciting, but also to make it more commercial. So more beneficial for sponsors, partners, advertisers. And we just kind of couldn't break away from this fact that we kept watching it going, why aren't they doing this? Why aren't they doing that? And because it had that instant value proposition, like if you're a player, you're sat there and you're enjoying it for 5 minutes and then you can't play again for another 24 hours. That was that instant gratification on the user side. But then on the advertiser side, there was so much we could do with the fact that ads were live in that moment rather than, traditional banner adverts that you might see on loads of other different apps. And we really saw the benefit on both sides and said, well, if that was the problem that we faced last time, let's see if we can go and build something better than we were seeing in the market. And sadly, that business that originally inspired us went under, not for the fault of the idea, but just the sort of maybe the lack of commercialization and progress, all the things that we'd been planning. And we registered the business 2 days into the pandemic. So perfect timing, as I know some of your other guests are also pandemic businesses. But 3 years down the line, we're feeling really great. We've got an awesome team. That's why I can't take any credit for how fun the games are. That's definitely down to our games team. But it's been really, really great, and hopefully we have solved a lot of those problems that we saw in that original business, and have actually ploughed onwards and giving that experience to both the users and also on the commercial side too.
Nice one, Nathan. I mean, the first thing I would say on that is that, all of, I know the feeling, all good ideas do start in the pub over a pint on my end as well. And I mean, it's incredible that you've got such amazing brands on board, and there's even something for commercial partners with respect to integrations. This mass participation technology you've got going on is amazing, and it's great that you license the platform to your partners to improve the digital experience of their users. I mean, now what are you hoping to achieve with Live Tech Games?
I think it's and you've said it there, Oliver. To be honest, that the licensing of the platform is, we've got a dual focus now, and that definitely is one of those, because one of the things that both Sam and I will admit, day in, day out, is when we started the business, and the idea was simply around that style of games and being the first to pioneer that style of games. We did assume that it would be easy from a technical perspective, and we were quite wrong. It's been a really, really big challenge to actually overcome that technical problem. And if you think about it in the context of other industries, what is actually happening when people join to play our games is hundreds of thousands of people join at the same time in that exact moment to play the same game, and you're paired up against real people. There's no bots, nothing else like that. So all of those people joining at the same time is such a strain on servers and things like that. If you look at, I don't know about you, if you ever try and buy concert tickets and they say they're released at noon, oh, the website falls over immediately. Everybody logs in and it falls over. Or if you ever try and get something on a Black Friday sale, in November towards the end of the year, you log in, think you're going to get the great deals, and it all falls over because so many people have tried to log in. And it's exactly that same challenge, except in that retail environment or ticket sales or whatever it might be. You can put people in a queue. You can say, "Oh, just wait for 20 minutes while we let our compute power catch up." We can't do that as a game. You're interacting live with other people, so we've no way of holding people off, putting them in a queue. So the only thing we could do was build a first of its kind technology that can actually handle that many messages back and forth per second, for people to have this shared experience that's that short, sharp burst of fun.
I mean, I do remember actually, now that you mentioned it, buying some tickets for something. I remember it was the first disciplinary I'd ever got from work, because I'd spent a whole morning trying to, I can't remember what it was, maybe Ticketmaster or something like that, but these tickets came out for a concert, and I had my finger on the button when they said it would go live, and I pressed it, and the website crashed, and I spent the whole morning just pressing this button trying to get some tickets, and then eventually my boss sort of tapped me on the tapped me on my shoulder and said, do you want to get some work done now, Oliver?
Well, first and only disciplinary, I presume, Oliver, of course. But no, that's definitely, it's such a problem that everyone knows exists, but it just happens to be that we've never made that correlation between the games and that same concurrency issue. So we spent quite literally the majority of our investment funding and all of our time and effort on solving this platform problem, this technological issue. And once we did that, and that is, to be honest, our whole journey has been really focused around bringing in amazing people into the team. We're so lucky to have such a talented team, but whatout them, we couldn't have built that technology. And now that we've got it, that dual focus of where we go from here is letting other people use that technology for whatever might be useful. That is also still in gaming and other things. But then we're also not just doing the licensing of the technology, we are still pioneering that new style and that new genre of mobile gaming through one of our consumer brands, which is called Poggle, which is, of course, one of the things that you know about, Oliver, because we've worked on it together and getting that brand protected. Yeah. But yeah, so we have a dual focus right now. We're still pioneering that brand new style of mobile gaming and providing all those benefits to our commercial partners. But we have a really amazing core technology now that the team have built over the last 3 years, and we want to continue to allow other people to leverage that, both in the form of gaming and other uses as well.
Well, I mean, you've definitely put some magic out onto the market there. Whatever you're doing, just keep doing it, because you're doing it really good, Nathan.
We're trying our best.
But Nathan, I mean, look, apart from just being an extremely nice guy, we've invited you on here because we've really enjoyed advising you on your trademark protection projects. I mean, you've really tested us, with strategy here, in order to make sure we get things right. You've asked very carefully planned and really well thought out questions to each and every point we've made whenever we've given you advice. We all wonder what happens behind the scenes once you receive an email, in your organization. I mean, researching the answers to some of your questions has been extremely intellectually stimulating for our team. And the key points that you you raised, even with our preliminary filing advice, has required very careful consideration and attention on our end. And I remember the paralegal in my team who was assisting me at the time. She was one of the brightest and sharpest assistants I've ever worked with, actually, and she was really forward thinking. And she was really, really forced to think outside of the box when drafting responses to you. But I think she did an incredible job anyway. And you've always raised interesting points, Nathan. So you guys are the perfect case study for us. And on that note, actually, I think it's fair to say that when we first met, the trademarking process for your live tech games brands was not entirely straightforward and had many potential, let's say, hindrances for your launch. So can you just describe to our viewers, a few things that
I think
happened?
I think that might be a fair summary, to be honest, Oliver. And I mean, I'm not sure how many people come to you in our situation versus others, but I'll put my hands up and say, you know, you can imagine the process of Sam and I spending, 18 months building the business. We've moved back home. We're not paying ourselves. You're doing literally everything you can to get to that first product launch. The team had worked their socks off. We really felt like we were going to get there. We were going to get, this is it. You can imagine the phone calls to investors. This is it. We're launching the first one. We're going to see how the market reacts. And it was 2 days into launch that we got a very firm email with a letter attached from a company that said we were infringing on their trademark. So we came to you and your team from a basis of desperation rather than preparation, and that's something that we've certainly used and swapped that around now. We certainly don't operate that way anymore, but at the time, when you think about all the technical challenges that we're facing, we're thinking about marketing a brand new product. With all of those things going on, the last thing we ever thought about was, well, do we need some sort of brand protection? So we learned very quickly. Yeah, it was quite literally 2 days into our launch that we got that letter saying that you need to stop because this is owned, and it was a very big company. You'll remember, Oliver. So we certainly didn't have any sort of means to do anything other than start again. And that was the first time we spoke to you and your team. So I remember you picked up the phone in the pandemic. Of course, nobody could do any meetings, and we just picked up the phone and said, this has happened. We now are learning that actually having these brand protection is very important. But what we don't want to do is make the same mistake again. So we had a product that needed, because it's a live game, as we've just been explaining, it was due to go live in 2 days' time. So at the time, we were running them every other day, the games. So we had sort of 48 hours where we wanted to rebrand and republish our apps to the app stores, but with a brand that we knew we weren't going to have the same problem with. So I know we spent a long time, not just brainstorming on our side, but then every idea that we thought was good, we'd send you an email and say, can you do the preliminary searches on this? What might be the risks? What's the level? And we just ended up with quite a few names. And I do believe we ended up picking the one that you and your team said had the most likelihood of us being able to protect it. And yeah, within 48 hours, we'd renamed it with the sort of backing of the knowledge that we didn't have the first time from your team saying, this is the one that we're most likely to be able to protect. And we went live into the app stores, and then the same day made our application through you and your team.
I do remember that very well, and I do remember we had some long pre-filing conversations. If I can describe it as that. I mean, because there was a lot of careful thought, even around things like typefaces, fonts, logos, colors, letter casing, when filing these applications. And I remember our conversations went all over the shop. They went from UK IPO applications to WIPO, Madrid Protocol applications, consequences of central attacks on your international portfolio. We discussed converting EU applications into individual member state applications. And then we went all the way to talking about transforming designations of international trademarks. I mean, very enjoyable for me. But you know, I don't know how it was on your side, but I think
Well, I think that's the interesting thing for us is, like I say, we didn't know anything about trademarking before we went through that experience. And then because of having that experience, we flipped it around and we now understand the importance of the brand protection. So I'm delighted that at least 20% of those words, Oliver, I can remember what they mean. So clearly we've learned something on the journey, but glad that we've got you and your team backing us, because it's just something that, like I say, although they are so important challenges, you know, these legal things that come through trademarking and examiners, and whether we've done it UK or elsewhere, we're very much in the position of, we're worried about technology and the marketing and the users and selling ship space so that we can then continue to raise funds and grow the team and further the you know, those are the challenges we want to be looking at. So knowing that we always had you and your team in the background to just come back on email or pick up the phone definitely allows us to focus on the right things. And well, it's worked for us. I think we've certainly successfully got 3 trademarks protected through you and your team, and there's definitely more coming, Oliver.
Well, thank you. Thank you for those kind words, Nathan. I mean, I remember what was very impressive on our end is when we were advising you on what classes to protect. And although you are, you know, a tech company, I mean, it was really clever of you to consider protecting yourself for merchandise. I mean, you and your team explored practically all potential revenue streams, which is really good. And I also remember that we had some, you know, some very, very big conversations about potential conflicting earlier rights. And on that note, what would you say to viewers about the importance of conducting thorough due diligence before selecting and protecting a brand?
I think the thing that really shifted it in our minds was not just the experience that we'd had with that very first game release, but actually we kind of went down an approach where we decided internally that what we wanted to do was, rather than have individual games effectively that were all across app stores in different countries, we wanted to build one central place that people could experience this new style of games. And of course, as soon as you get to that point, that brand is everything to you. You know, our consumers, it's going to be the interface for our consumers. It's going to be the name that when an advertising executive goes into a meeting and says, oh, today we're considering a huge spend with, and then insert brand here, you know, we want to make sure that people know what that is, that it's protected, that we can not just do it here, but carry on doing it abroad as well. So from our side, it was so important to get all of that preliminary work done so that we didn't end up down a road where people start to recognize our brand. We think we're doing great. You know, we've got hundreds of thousands of players in the games and on the platform. And then you have an objection down the line. Sure. So we just knew we didn't want to be there. And I also think that as a startup and a small business that's been growing and growing, and we're continuing to expand, at the time, those things that maybe don't seem like a lot of money to big businesses actually are a lot of money in the early days. So when we're going out and we're putting up branded out of home campaigns, or when we're paying, before we have internal graphic designers and you pay a graphic designer to build out a suite of adverts for you to start advertising your product, you know, if that could be 5-10% of your monthly spend, and as soon as you can't use that brand anymore, you've got to go and spend that money again. So although now thinking of creating an advert is nice and easy and we do it in-house, but back when you're a much smaller company, we couldn't go down a route where we would spend money on whether it be merchandising or advertising or graphics, and then we not be able to use that brand anymore. So we absolutely knew that going down that preliminary route was the right thing to do, and very glad we did, because we're in that protected position that we want to be in, and we can talk very openly about our brands, knowing that we're in that safe and protected zone.
Exactly, and I remember we even went down the route of talking about the impact of earlier rights in other territories, because although we were dealing with a UK filing project initially, we even had to think about conflicting earlier rights in other territories, since there were some we'll say, potential obstacles that may have had a material or detrimental effect on the overall protection of your key brands, and therefore these foreign rights also needed to be reviewed and assessed thoroughly. And I think for the viewers, it's important in some cases to instruct your trademark attorney to conduct searches for conflicting marks outside of the UK, even if the filing project is for a UK mark only, because it's possible, for example, in some instances, as you know, that a trademark, filed in the EU or the US can actually potentially challenge a UK trademark application. So applicants for, well, UK applicants should pretty much ensure that trademark owners outside of the UK cannot extend protection into the UK and supersede your trademark filing date, because that could be curtains for your brand. And I remember, Nathan, that we even ended up discussing the potential removal of foreign trademarks from their own national register, so as to clear the way, if you will,
Yeah.
for your.
And I also think it's one of those moments where you'll I mean, not never say never, but a lot of people now, when you think about how long these trademarking processes have existed, and you think about the amount of new companies that are registered every day, if you want a protected brand, you don't get a 100% clear path like you're suggesting. You don't just come up with a name and guess what? No one's ever thought of it ever. No one's ever registered it in any country, and no one's registered anything similar to it ever. There's never that clear path. So it was so important for us to have those conversations of trying to get that best path, and sometimes that we did have to consider, would we make applications to remove other trademarks in those regions and those registers, because there isn't ever that clear trajectory. And I'm sure you and your team love it if someone does get that clear trajectory, but truthfully it's not common, given, like I say, how many businesses are created every year, how many new brands are built. It's a very challenging thing. So no, I'm very glad that we went and looked that far and wide, because just like many business owners and entrepreneurs, we want to grow. Sam and I sit here every day along with our team, and we're building the business for the future. And that means that did mean expanding into other territories or expanding into new product lines. So it was so important for us to make sure that the brands we were building, we could grow as big as we wanted to grow.
Exactly. And I mean, on that note, it was a good opportunity, if anything, for me to touch base and say hello to my foreign associates and pick their brains on, the commencement of local tribunal actions and proceedings in their jurisdiction. And yes, I mean, I learned something new every day as well, which is pretty great. And one thing that I do remember as well is that we did spend some time discussing UK examinations. I'm not sure if you remember those dark days, Nathan.
I do, and it was from my limited knowledge of it, Oliver, so I'm sure you'll correct me here, was all to do with the sort of similarity between our mark and other marks, and whether they were sort of distinctive enough, let's say.
Well, I think, there were Nathan, you've had to deal with the whole shebang, basically. You've seen it all, if anyone has. I mean, you had to deal with series objections for multiple trademarks that are filed in the same application. You've had to deal with specification queries to the list of goods and services that have been filed. You've had to deal with absolute grounds and inherent registrability objections that relate to the distinctiveness and descriptiveness of trademarks. I mean, on that note, I think one thing that the viewers should take home is that if your mark is a word or phrase that can potentially have a relationship with the goods and services that you want protection for, or they or the mark describes a characteristic of those goods and services, you should really make sure you obtain advice from an attorney on the risks involved there, and ask how to manage those risks. But as you say, Nathan, the main thing we had to deal with, that took up most of our time when we were dealing with the examination, was the earlier rights notifications in relation to conflicting marks that the examiner actually gave us. And I'd probably say to the viewers out there, try not to ignore these notifications of earlier rights from the examiner. If possible, review and consider, the similarity of these marks. Make sure you assess whether there is an actual conflict in your specification of goods and services. Evaluate whether there is actually a likelihood of confusion. Look at whether there is, in fact, a block to the use and registration of your trademark. And also make sure you check whether you have any available defenses to trademark infringement, just in case you do get sued. One thing that's advisable is to look at the litigation history of the owner of the earlier mark, and and to see how trigger happy they are in terms of bouncing people and businesses into the courtroom that they think infringe on their trademarks. And also probably look at potential leverage that you might have, just in case there is a dispute or there is a negotiation. So try to analyze any weaknesses that the earlier rights holder might have. It's also important to research their commercial interests as well. And then once you've done all of this stuff, then you can categorize the degree of risk, and also, at the same time, if need be, devise a solution to reduce the risk. Look, now that the trademark portfolio for the live tech games brands are yours, and you have more time to focus on inventing new and inventive and creative products and services for the brand and your users, tell us what is next for live tech games.
I mean, it's definitely does give you more time when all of those things are sorted, Oliver. I'll give you that. So nice to have those boxes checked off for now.
You're welcome.
I think we're in we're in a really interesting space right now, which is, like I said at the start, having that dual focus for the technology that we've built, both going out on our own, that direct to consumer brand that we worked on together, as well as trying to sort of support and use that technology to build games for other people. We were really lucky last year to do some work with ITV, and we did some work with some of ITV's shows where we would build the games on behalf of their shows, and then they would advertise them on the TV. And we got, some fantastic results. It's the classic moment where, you see tens of thousands of downloads in 1 minute, that spike every time that you get those advertising and you work with those partners. So we had some really great experiences working alongside ITV in their shows. So one of the things that we're doing this year is looking to expand the partners that we're working with. So it works fantastically for television, these live games, because they're at that set time. You can imagine a show finishing and the show saying, thanks for watching today's show, but if you want to carry on the fun, there's a 5-minute tournament style game that's really easy for you to participate in. It starts in 2 minutes. So you have that sort of call to action. There's also so many other industries and parts of the media world that could really benefit from that. We're looking at working with sports and in sports arenas and stadiums, as well as alongside, of course, sports coverage. We're looking at sort of the influencer and creator space, people that have huge followings and audiences, but maybe don't have the level of interactivity that we can provide through small, exciting games. So we're continuing to do work with TV, with media, and in sports. Music as well is another great one. People with huge followings, as music fans do and artists have, but trying to bring these new experiences to all of those different industries, as well as the fact that our direct consumer game Toggle here and the US are just really, really exciting and still engaging and entertaining players, as well as looking after our commercial sponsors well too. So yeah, a very much a dual focus, but it all comes down to that technology is there now, so we can go and just continue to entertain our audience, whether it be through our own direct to consumer brands or whether it be through these other great businesses that we've been able to partner with.
Well, look, Nathan, I mean, from the day we first spoke and met, I mean, I could, I always knew that you were destined for big things, my friend. And it's nice to see that this huge ambition of yours is really becoming a reality now. And, as I said before, you're a very humble person, which is very admirable given, what you've achieved so far. And it's really great that you always give your team recognition every step of the way. And I believe that you're no fewer than a 25-person strong team, from what I can count, well, from what I see from your website. And I think, I mean, in my opinion, you're a testament to young entrepreneurs out there, with respect to, I mean, amongst other things, your mindset and your business acumen, and just the way you do business. And I mean, for Trademark Wizards, I mean, we can only thank you for trusting our firm with the responsibility of your trademark protection projects. And it goes without saying, Nathan, that we are immensely proud to be able to call Live Tech Games our client. So thank you very much.
Well, right, that's way too kind again, Oliver. But no, the truth is that I have an absolutely incredible co-founder. The team are amazing. But in a market like this, you have to have very good investors as well that are willing to look after you. So we've all built it together, and definitely you guys have been a huge part of that journey. When you rescue someone like you did those 3 years ago, when we had 24 hours to turn around a new brand and get that application submitted, we certainly would be coming back for more. And I'm glad we've challenged you a little bit, Oliver. I'm glad to hear that it's been intellectually stimulating as much as it has been getting the stuff done.
Well, look, take a bow, my friend. And I hope the next time I see you will be very soon, and we'll get to share a nice cold pint together. Thank you for listening to the third of our podcast interviews featuring our client Nathan from Live Tech Games. If today's conversation has resonated with you in any way and perhaps provoked some thought or opinions, then please do comment. We would also love you to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can get updates on our latest podcast episodes with our clients and business associates, as well as other cool content that we might decide to throw out from time to time. If you've got any questions or are interested in seeking legal advice about your trademarks and brands, then please do get in touch with me, Oliver, directly at oliver.oz@trademarkwizards.co.uk. Thank you, and I look forward to hearing from you.